My name doesn't matter anymore, not after what I saw beneath the red sands of Virella 7. I wasn't supposed to be out there alone. Mining crews always move in squads of 5. It's regulation especially in the outer fringe, but when you're 3 months overdue for a paycheck and the oxygen recyclers in your sector are hanging on by a prayer, rules become negotiable. I took the rover, a battered LX-Cart model with cracked stabilizers, and drove straight into Forbidden's territory. Marked Restricted, DONT. I never figured out what the acronym stood for. I just knew nobody ever came back from beyond that line. I wasn't looking for trouble. I was looking for Arianite, the galaxy's most coveted energy source. Volatile but pure. 1 kilo could light a colony for months. I thought I found a deposit. My scanner was dancing with green, so I followed the signal into a ravine. That's when the ground gave out. I didn't fall far, maybe 10 meters, but when I stood up and wiped the dust from my visor, I saw it. A black doorway, half buried in sediment. Not a natural formation, perfectly squared edges. Smooth, seamless material, ancient, yet humming faintly like it was alive. Curiosity trumped fear. I slid through the entrance and descended into a darkness so complete, it swallowed the glow from my helmet. I followed the passage until it widened into a chamber. And then I saw her, a cage, glass, metal, and something else I couldn't identify sat in the center of the room, suspended slightly above the floor by magnetic fields. Inside was a girl. Not human, she looked it at first. 2 arms, 2 legs, a face that could have belonged to anyone in the core worlds. But her skin shimmered like liquid pearl, shifting under the light. Her hair, long and silver, floated slightly like it was underwater. And her eyes, when they met mine, were full of something I didn't expect. Not fear. Not anger, but grief. She didn't move. Just stared. She was unclothed, but it didn't feel sexual or vulnerable. It felt clinical, like she'd been stripped not just of clothes, but of identity, dignity, memory. I stepped closer. My scanner pinged wildly. Her body was generating levels of energy I'd only seen in star cores. Can you understand me? I asked. She didn't speak. Her lips parted, but no sound came. Instead, a glowing pattern emerged across her chest, a network of symbols I'd never seen before, almost like veins of light. I touched the cage. Electricity surged through my arm, hurling me backwards. I hit the ground, dazed. When I looked up again, she was kneeling now, closer to the glass, her palms pressed to it like she was pleading. She wanted out. For a moment, I hesitated. She could be a weapon, a trap, a beacon. The stories about Virella 7 were fairy tales. People disappeared for a reason. Still, something in her eyes refused to let go of me. I opened my toolkit, disabled the magnetic locks using an arc splitter, and disengaged the power matrix. The cage hissed open like a long-held breath. The room dimmed, and then she collapsed. No strength, no rage, just silence. I caught her before she hit the ground. Her skin was warm, not hot, glowing like a reactor barely restrained beneath fragile flesh. She looked up at me. Her lips trembled, and then she whispered the first word I'd hear from her: run. I carried her through the tunnels, retracing my path. Whatever energy she had left was flickering fast. Her body went limp, but her hands gripped mine tightly, like she knew something was coming. We emerged into the ravine under the dusklit sky. The red sands had turned gold. I signaled the rover remotely. It skidded to a stop beside us. As I placed her inside, I felt a rumble beneath my boots. Then I saw it, a ship. No, not a ship, something else, organic, pulsing, like a heart wrapped in steel. It rose from beneath the collapsed terrain, shaped like a blooming flower of obsidian and bone. Symbols carved across its skin began to glow the same way hers had. She sat up weakly and pointed. Zetheric. I didn't ask questions. I hit the accelerator and the rover flew across the sand. Behind us, tendrils of light erupted from the ship, latching onto the canyon walls, pulling it up like it was growing. She grabbed my arm. They know I'm free. Who? I asked. Her eyes met mine, hollow and ancient. The ones who put me there. We returned to the colony's outskirts by nightfall. I took her to my personal medbay, small but sterile. She wouldn't let go of my hand until she finally passed out. I scanned her again. Her biology was not cataloged in any database. Every cell in her body was dual-layered, organic, and crystalline. Her heart had two pulses. Her brain, if I could call it that, lit up even while unconscious, radiating patterns that my system couldn't process. But what frightened me most was her age. The carbon trace suggested she'd been alive for over 30,000 years. I stared at her in silence. Who was she? She woke 3 hours later, sat upright like someone jolting out of a nightmare. I was next to her, and she didn't flinch. I don't know your name, I said softly. She tilted her head. You wouldn't be able to pronounce it. Try me. She smiled for the first time. Small, broken. Say Lara, say Lara, I repeated. It rolled off my tongue like wine in a forgotten place. She looked down at herself, saw the blanket covering her. Thank you for not looking. I said nothing. There was a silence between us, not awkward, but heavy. Like something sacred had passed unspoken. You saved me, she whispered. You warned me to run. That thing, the ship, it's connected to you. She nodded. It was my prison and my warden. Why would someone lock you up for 30 millennia? Her eyes darkened because I refused to become what they wanted, which was a weapon, a queen, a god. She met my gaze. Take your pick. The air around her shimmered faintly. I could feel her pain, not metaphorically. My head ached just being near her. I felt memories that weren't mine. Battlefields soaked in stardust, a tower made of screaming voices, a betrayal that shattered suns. She wasn't just a girl. She was history. Say Lara, I said, choosing my words carefully. Who are they? The ones who caged you. She hesitated, then answered in a single word that felt like a curse. Velther. I'd heard the name. Whispers in the dark corners of black market spaceports. A species or a syndicate nobody knew for sure, just that they made people disappear, whole planets sometimes. Why are they after you now? She looked out the window. Because I'm the only one who remembers what they really are. We didn't sleep that night. She told me fragments, never full stories. Images more than facts. They came from outside time. She said once, they don't invade, they overwrite. I didn't understand, not fully. But I saw the terror in her voice. Then why spare me? I asked. She turned, and for the first time, her fingers touched mine without trembling. Because you didn't look at me like I was a thing. The next morning, the sky burned. A black rift opened over the colony. Silent, seamless, no alarms. Triggered, just ... shadows crawling down from the sky. I grabbed my weapon, an antique pulse rifle, barely upgraded from the first colonial wars, and stood in front of Lara. She looked past me. It's too late, she said softly. They've already rewritten your sky, but you're still here, I said. And that means they haven't won. For a moment, just a heartbeat, I saw something I didn't expect in her face. Hope. She took my hand. If I'm to fight again, she said, I won't do it alone this time. We stood together as the first of the Velther arrived. Not ships, not soldiers, reflections, copies of ourselves, twisted, inverted, made of memory and malice, and they were smiling. They looked like us. No, they were us, not clones, not androids, reflections. They moved with perfect mimicry, but there was no soul in their eyes, only hunger. I stared at the one that wore my face, same scar under the eye, same chipped tooth from a bar brawl on Cygnus 4, but his gaze, it was glass. Lara stepped forward, her body still weak, but her presence heavy. They're not alive, she said. The mirror versions tilted their heads in eerie synchronicity. One lifted a hand, and I watched my own movement mirrored like a shadow. Then what are they? I asked. She didn't blink. Velther don't fight like us, they rewrite. They take what you are and they make it theirs. The closest reflection opened its mouth. You freed her. Now you will burn. The voice was wrong, distorted, as if pulled through metal. My skin crawled. Lara stepped in front of me. Her body radiated light, subtle but pulsing stronger now. I told you they were coming, she said quietly. I didn't tell you they'd start with you. The moment shattered like glass. The reflections lunged. I fired first. My pulse rifle ripped a line of searing energy through my doppelganger's chest. It staggered, then reassembled mid-air. Bone knitted itself with threads of light. I switched the rifle to scatter mode and hit it again. This time, it dissolved into static, but the others were already inside. One tackled me to the ground. It was me, and it knew exactly how I moved, how I fought. I wrestled with it, my hands gripping its throat, but its skin was like mercury. My finger slid through it, not around it, say Lara. I shouted. She didn't answer with words. She sang, a sound, pure and dissonant at once, rippled through the air. The reflections screamed. Their forms vibrated, glitched until one by one, they burst into fractals of light and vanished. She fell to her knees. I caught her before she collapsed. Her skin burned against mine. I saw her veins lit up like constellations. Are you alright? I asked. She shook her head faintly. I called them here. I blinked. What? I didn't mean to. When you opened the cage, it triggered a signal, a failsafe. They know I'm awake now. They'll never stop. You didn't bring this on purpose. No, she whispered, but it was always going to happen. We left the colony within the hour. It wasn't safe anymore. I didn't even pack. I grabbed her, stole a stealth shuttle from the upper docks, and headed into the cloud belts beyond Virella's orbit. I didn't know where we were going. I just needed to move. She slept most of the time. Her body was adjusting, reawakening, she said later. That cage had suppressed not just her powers, but her biology. She wasn't built to be still. She was a living key, a weapon, a warning, a memory. 3 days into deep space, we landed on a derelict way station orbiting a dead moon. Nobody had used it in decades, but it still had power. I ran diagnostics while she walked slowly through the halls, touching old terminals, faded screens, rusted steel. It's strange, she said. This place remembers silence. I looked at her. Can I ask you something? She nodded. You said the Velther wanted you to become a weapon or a queen or a god. Why not? She paused, then answered without turning. Because gods don't cry. I waited. I was created by a species called the Aventari, she said. You won't find them in your records. They don't exist anymore. The Velther erased them. I stepped closer. They made you. I was their last defense. Not a soldier, a convergence. They infused me with everything they were: knowledge, culture, memory, soul. I wasn't born. I was composed. Then how did the Velther? Because someone I trusted betrayed me, she said, her voice flat. He wasn't Aventari. He was, like you, a human. That stung deeper than I expected. You loved him? She looked at me then. I didn't understand love until he taught me how it feels when it's broken. Silence stretched between us like a vacuum. I didn't speak. I couldn't. I was captured. She continued. Imprisoned, sliced, studied, spliced. They took what made me me and tried to forge an army from it. But it didn't work. Why? Because you can't replicate grief. And I was full of it. Later that night, I watched her sleep, not in a creepy way, just watched. She curled into herself like she was trying to disappear. Every few minutes, her skin glowed faintly. Her lips twitched as if whispering to someone long gone. I wanted to reach out, but I did in single quotes until she whispered my name, not the reflections. Name, mine, stay. She said. So I did. We drifted for days, hiding in Einfield's black nebulae and sensor shadows. The Velther didn't come again, not directly. But something did. Whispers. Radio signals filled with static and half-spoken words. Dreams infected with other people's memories. She woke up one morning and said a name I'd never told her. My mother's. They're searching your past now, she said. Trying to unravel you. How do I stop them? You can't, she said, but I can teach you how to hold on. We trained. She taught me how to guard my thoughts, not with strength, but with story. They prey on facts, she said, but they can't decode emotion, so I told her. Mine, stories from my youth, my first heartbreak, my last deployment. The night my brother died on an ice planet no one remembers. She listened not just with her ears, but with her whole self. She memorized me. In return, she gave me pieces of her own life, the way stars looked from Aventari skyships, the laughter of a people long extinguished, the sound of their final symphony, which she sang in a voice that made my bones ache. One night, I asked her what she wanted most, to be forgotten. She said, I frowned. Why? Because memory makes you a target. If no one remembers me, the Velther can't use me, but I remember you. She looked up, soft, I know. And that terrifies me. We were found on the 8th day. A black hole blinked open in the corner of our cabin. Not a metaphor, a literal rupture in space, shaped like a spiral iris. Sailera stood instantly. They're here. I grabbed my rifle. But this time, it wasn't just reflections that came through. It was him, the man she once loved. He was beautiful, ageless, radiant. His voice was like silk dipped in starlight. Sailera, he said. You look tired. She didn't flinch. Eric, my jaw clenched. He's one of them? Worse, she whispered. He's what they made after me. He stepped forward. His feet didn't touch the ground. I missed you. We all did. Come home. She drew a blade of pure light from her palm. I'd rather die. He turned to me then, smiled. You must be the new obsession. I see you now. I see your fears. I raised the rifle. Get out of my head. Too late. He said. Suddenly, I was falling, not physically, mentally. Memories crashed through me like waves. My brother's death, the day I was dishonorably discharged, the night I almost pulled the trigger on myself in an abandoned pod station. I saw Sailera reaching for me, but I couldn't move. Eric's voice echoed. You were broken long before she found you. Then I remembered her touch, her song. Her name, Sailera. I whispered. Light exploded behind my eyes. When I woke, she was cradling me. Eric was gone. The room smelled like burned ozone. You fought him, she said softly. With memory, I nodded weakly. He's stronger than the reflections, she nodded. But he's not stronger than us. We didn't speak much after that. The intimacy had changed, deepened, not romantic, not yet, but tethered by something ancient. Something dangerous. On the 10th night, as we drifted through the Orion veins, she came to me, no words, no pretense. She lay beside me in the cryocamber, our bodies separated only by skin and sorrow. I don't want to be alone anymore, she said. You're not. I might be again. You won't. She kissed me. It wasn't fire or hunger. It was gravity. When we pulled apart, she whispered, they'll come now. All of them, and she was right. The stars outside began to blink. One by one, extinguished. It began with silence. No alarms, no tremors. Just a quiet so complete, I could feel it pressing against my teeth. Outside the viewport, stars flickered out one by one like dying candles. They're not just erasing light, Sailera whispered. They're erasing memory. She sat beside me in the dark, her hand in mine. The hum of the station's life support felt like a heartbeat tweak, but present. I could feel it trembling under the strain of her presence. She had grown stronger since we escaped Virella 7, but so had they. The Velther are rewriting the sky, she said, thread by thread. I stared into the blackness. What happens when they finish? We forget what it looked like. We forget the constellations, the names, even the places we came from, and what happens to us. She turned to me slowly, her silver hair glowing faintly in the dark. We become echoes. Copies of ourselves, without origin. I clenched my fists. I won't let them take you. She looked at me for a long time before answering. Then, you'll have to destroy the one thing that remembers me. What? She placed her hand on my chest. The decision came faster than I expected. We had two choices, run deeper or fight forward, and Sailera had stopped running. We charted a course for Nexus Vault 6, a memory archive hidden in the folds of the collapsed Jara's nebula. once used by data monks to preserve the last thoughts of extinct civilizations. If anyone remembered the Aventari, it would be there. The Velthor are targeting memory, she explained. But if we can find even a fragment of my people's legacy, we might strike back. How? I asked. She leaned in closer. By rewriting them. We arrived 3 days later. The station was intact, but not empty. Inside floated minds. I don't know what else to call them. Spheres of flickering thought, disembodied and ancient. Celera approached them like ghosts of her own reflection. Each one is a death, she murmured. A life condensed, compressed, stored so the universe won't forget. One drifted toward her. It pulsed, then unraveled like mist, showing a glimpse of what it held. A city of glass and golden wind. Laughter in a language older than stars. A child laughing beside a silver river. Celera dropped to her knees. It's my mother, she whispered. I thought I'd forgotten her face. She reached out, and the memory wrapped around her. Her entire body pulsed with radiant light. My sensors scrambled, then a voice echoed through the chamber. Error, presence, Velthor's signature detected. Security protocols activated. Red lights blinked awake. I raised my rifle. Celera, they followed us, she said. From the walls, the Velthor emerged, not reflections this time. Forms, humanoid, skeletal, wrapped in shadow armor. Their mouths stitched shut, eyes glowing like inverted suns. I fired. Rounds screamed across the chamber. Celera rose, arms wide, pulling energy from the drifting memory spheres. She wasn't a girl anymore. She was heritage. Symbols danced across her skin. Words I couldn't understand filled the air like static thunder. She screamed, and the screen shattered. 3 Velthor where they stood. The others closed in. I fought beside her. She moved like memory itself, unpredictable, ghost-like. She wasn't trying to survive. She was reminding them who she was. Then Eric arrived. He stepped from a portal of silence. No sound, no light, just absence. Celera froze when she saw him. I aimed my rifle. Stay back. He didn't even look at me. Celera, he said, voice soft. Why keep fighting? You were made to carry what no mind should bear. Let me relieve you of it. I'd rather burn, she said. He reached out a hand. I remember your laugh. You think I don't? You think I chose this? You did, she whispered. When you chose them. He looked at me then. And what about him? How long before he betrays you too? Humans break under pressure. I took a step forward. I'm not him. He smiled. You will be. Celera's hands glowed brighter than ever. Get away from us. And then everything went white. I awoke hours later, lying on a platform surrounded by burning circuitry. The station was collapsing. Memory spheres cracked and fizzled around me like dying stars. Celera stood alone in the center. Where is he? I asked. Gone, she said quietly. For now. She turned to me. I absorbed the vault. All of it. Every memory. Every life. Her eyes glowed with the weight of billions. Are you okay? I asked. No, she said, but I remember who I am now. She walked toward me, and something in her had changed, more resolved, more dangerous. I don't want to hide anymore, she said. I want to finish this. I nodded. What do we do? She looked up at the ceiling. We make them remember what they tried to forget. The Velthor homeworld wasn't a world. It was a constructan orbiting mind hive known as or YX. No one had ever seen it. No one who had lived to speak. Anyway, but Celera knew the coordinates. Not from star charts. From pain. They buried me under 1,000 layers of time, she said. But I can still feel the gravity of their thoughts. We traveled through slipspace, through the folds between thought and time. I don't remember how long it took, but I remember the moment we arrived. Oryx wasn't there. It was everywhere. An enormous living lattice of memory and thought, shaped like a ring of stone, and fire inside it. Nothing moved. And yet I felt every molecule of my body being read. They're scanning us. I said, no, Celera said. They're judging. We descended into the lattice. Guided by Celera's voice, she hummed the songs of her people and the paths Open. When we reached the core, the Velther were waiting, thousands of them, standing like statues, one mind. One voice, you remember too much. Sailera stepped forward. I remember enough to know what you stole. Enough to know what you are. The voice shifted. You were made to carry memory, not to wield it. She turned to me. And then she did something I didn't expect. She handed me the fragment of her heart. Literally, a crystalline shard from within her ribcage, pulsing with light. What the hell is this? I whispered. My essence, she said. Take it, run. No, they can't get it. If they do, they'll rewrite the universe. I'm not leaving you. I won't survive this. I don't care. She stepped forward, kissed me once fierce, fast, final. Then she turned and walked into the center of the chamber. The Velther closed in. She spread her arms. Let me remind you who I am. And she exploded, not in blood, in memory. A wave of sound, light, history, heartbreak, laughter, war, love, and ancient language blasted outward in every direction. It shattered the Velther where they stood. It shattered Oryx. I don't remember how I escaped, only that I awoke inside an escape pod. Sailera's shard in my chest, implanted. Alone. I screamed until I passed out. I drifted through the silence of post-light, untethered and barely alive. The escape pod was on life support, its systems failing one by one. The stars outside looked wrong, bent, dimmed, twisted like old memories retold too many times. I was floating in a place between realities, a ripple left behind from the destruction of Oryx. But I wasn't alone. I could feel her inside me. Sailera's shard pulsed in my chest, synchronizing with my heartbeat. Sometimes it hurt, sometimes it warmed. Sometimes in the stillness, I heard her voice. Not words, feelings. She had become memory itself. Not lost, not destroyed. Embedded. I don't know how long I drifted. Could have been hours, days. Time doesn't work the same when your mind is carrying a civilization's worth of memory. And that's exactly what I was now, a conduit. The last living memory of the Eventari, the last flicker of her. Eventually, I was found. A salvage crew from Freeport-Tostra intercepted my pod in the Outlands. They pulled me aboard, patched me up, and started asking questions. I gave them nothing. Not because I didn't trust them, because I couldn't. The moment I started talking, they'd become targets. The Velther hadn't died with Oryx. That was never the point. Oryx was one lattice, one archive. The Velther were older than stars, and more patient than gods. They would retreat, adapt, wait for a new way in. But they'd be hunting me now, because I carried what they feared most, a girl they couldn't erase. I didn't stay at Freeport-Tostra. I left after a week, took a stolen skimmer, outfitted it with ghost code, and vanished into the drift zones. I didn't know where I was going, only that I had to keep moving. At night, I would dream in colors that didn't exist. Whole languages flowed through me, names I couldn't pronounce. And always, I saw her, Sailera, sometimes smiling, sometimes breaking, but always watching. I kept her shard close, embedded behind a panel in my chest plate. It beat like a second heart. 2 months later, I found something, a signal, buried beneath 30 layers of static, hidden inside a ghost channel long abandoned by the old alliances. It wasn't random. It was her. I decoded the pulses, and my HUD flickered with the location. Yether runs divide. A planet split by gravity, torn in half and suspended in paradox. No one had visited it in years. That's where I went. Yether Rune was a broken place. Half the planet bathed in eternal light, the other in shadow. In the divide between them floated an ancient structure, a ringed temple, orbiting its own gravitational center. I docked on its edge. The air was thin, the sky bled orange and violet, and there, waiting in the center of the ring, was her. Not Sailera, a projection, an echo. She turned slowly when I approached. Her hair still drifted like silver ink, but her face was etched with something new. Peace. You came, she said, her voice no longer laced with pain. I couldn't speak. I just walked toward her until we stood inches apart. You're not real. I whispered. I am. She replied, not in the way you knew. But in every way that matters, tears stung my eyes. You're dead, I was never alive like you. But no, I'm not dead, I'm distributed. Spread across memory, embedded. In star code, in pulses, in echoes. I'm here because you remembered, I reached for her hand. It passed through mine, I don't know what to do, I said. I carry your pain, your people, your war. But I don't know how to win. She smiled softly, you already have. I shook my head, the Velther are still out there. Yes, but now. So am I? She gestured to the shard in my chest. You're not just a carrier anymore, you're a transmitter. You're rewriting the universe just by surviving. Every moment. You remember me, you weaken them. Every story you tell, every dream you share, breaks their hold. I swallowed hard. I don't know if I'm strong enough. You don't have to be strong, she said. You just have to be true. Then she faded, not with sadness, but with grace. I left Yetherrune with a new purpose. I became a wanderer, traveling from system to system. Not hiding, spreading, I told her story where I could. In bars, in backrooms, on derelict ships, I whispered her name into data streams and carved her symbols into moonstone. I became a rumor. A myth. The man who carried the ghost of a girl that remembered too much. People started listening. Some laughed, some followed. Some remembered, and that was enough. One night, as I camped beneath the open skies of a forgotten world, I looked up. The stars had returned, not the same arrangement, but new ones, and I heard her voice again, softer than the wind. I'm still here. I smiled. I know. Epilogoi don't know how long I'll last. The Velther are patient, but I'm no longer afraid. Because every time someone whispers her name, every time a child draws her shape in the dust, every time a dream sparks with the color of her voice, she wins again. And again, and again, and one day. Even the Velther will forget, but we won't. Not while I'm alive. Not while there's even one star left to remember her. You'd think ending a war would bring peace, but memory doesn't fade evenly. Some remember slower than others. Some never forget, and some use memory as a weapon. I'd been drifting for 6 years when I heard the signal. It wasn't like the others. No echo of Celera, no poetic shimmer across the calm channels. It was jagged, coded in old core script, and signed with a name I'd never heard before, Baal Vorin. Archive seeker, urgent. He'd sent the message 6 months ago, bounced off 10 relay stations, and aimed it directly at a set of coordinates long thought to be blacklisted by the Galactic Council, Osatun 9, a planet caught in time dilation, orbiting a neutron star that twisted time like ribbon. Nobody goes to OSS Itune-9. Nobody comes back, but something in the tone of the message felt familiar. Not the voice, not the words. The ache behind them, the ache of someone who remembered too much. I landed during twilight, though twilight on Osatun 9 could last an entire week in relative time. The planet was bleak, wine-scarred, and mostly barren. But nestled between two collapsed mountain ranges was a facility clearly human design, but aged with a weight that didn't match the construction date. The door opened before I knocked. And he stood there, tall, thin, synthetic eye. Baal Vorin. He studied me with a kind of weary amusement. You're the memory carrier, he said. You're the one who called. He gestured me inside. The inside of the station was a museum of forbidden thought. Symbols I recognized from Celera's visions covered the walls. Broken memory crystals lined the shelves. Projectors hummed with dormant lives. Where did you get all this? I asked. Scattered pieces, he replied. Black sites, crashed stations, discarded relics. No one wants the burden of remembering anymore. He led me down a corridor into a vault-around room lit by a single beam of artificial sun. There were others, 5 of them. Men, women, a child, all seated in perfect silence, all breathing slowly. Eyes closed. Who are they? I whispered. The remembered, he said. Each one holds a sliver of something lost. Not just of Ventari, other species, other wars. Pieces of history removed. By the Velther, I stepped closer. Their pulses were sensed. Like a choir in sleep, and why me? Baal turned to me, serious now, because something's changing. Something the Velther didn't plan for. He tapped his skull. They're forgetting. I didn't understand at first, but that's good, isn't it? I asked. Bale shook his head. Not when they forget what they are. He activated a projection. A flickering image appeared above their node. Its structure warped, convulsing like a living virus. They're breaking apart, repeating code, fracturing into factions. Some want to erase, some want to remember, others want to become something else entirely. I stared at the screen. That means they're vulnerable, he nodded, but also dangerous, because what does a god become when it forgets it's a god? That night, I dreamed of her again. Sella Ira. But this time, she was bleeding. Standing in a chamber of ice, her hands pressed against a mirror, her eyes full of sorrow. They're trying to remember me wrong, she whispered. I woke with sweat freezing on my neck. Bale had a plan. We need to find the Oblivion Spine, he said. It's the source of their neural convergence, the place where they overwrite reality. And where is it? He smiled grimly. Inside the deadlight. The deadlight was a myth, a zone of warped gravity near the edge of the known systems. Ships that entered it didn't vanish, they returned rewritten. Crew changed, timelines inverted. One ship arrived with a pilot who swore he hadn't been born yet, but Sailor had once spoken of it. Memory doesn't disappear, she'd said. It just falls where light can't reach. We built a crew. Bale, of course, a pilot named Loon Riss, who'd once stolen a warship from the Sarlacc Syndicate and lived to tell the tale. A mute tactician named Oren Lear, whose mind spoke in flashes of ancient code, and a woman called Cowrix, who claimed to have killed a Velther reflection with her bare hands. Each of them had lost someone. Each of them remembered. We boarded a long-range cruiser, patched together from salvaged hulls and forbidden tech, and named it the Echo Spire. Then we flew into the dark. The deadlight wasn't empty. It was alive. Thoughts whispered into our systems. Ghosts of the crew appeared in the corridors. At one point, I watched myself walk past the engine room 5 years older, with a scar I didn't recognize. Don't follow the versions, Bale warned. They want to make you doubt who you are. I kept the shard close, Sailor's heart. My truth. When we reached the core, we saw it. The Oblivion Spine, not a structure, a fracture, a wound in space. And pulsing inside it were Velther minds, countless, tangled, screaming silently into eternity. We launched the probe, not to destroy. To inject her memory, a virus of remembrance. Sailor's name, her voice, her grief. Her truth. They fought back. The Echo Spire shook as thought weapons hit us. Screams turned into impact. Logic blades cut through our code. Cowrix was the first to fall, imploded by an echo of her own daughter's cry. Oren Lear rerouted the neural stabilizers into his own brain, burned out half his mind, but kept the ship stable. Bale wired himself into the bridge. I'll keep the signal alive, he said. You get the memory to the source. I didn't argue. I took the shard and stepped into the fracture. It was like drowning in data. Worlds passed through me, of Intori voices. Sailor's first breath, her final scream, her love. My name, spoken in 30 different tongues. And then, peace. The Velther core trembled, and one of them, just one, looked at me. Its voice cracked. We remember her too. Then it collapsed. The others followed. Not with violence. With surrender. I woke up on the edge of the deadlight. Echo Spire adrift. Only 2 of us survived, me and Lunris. We buried Bale inside a pocket of memory crystal, his name etched in code only the stars can read. And now, I travel alone. Mostly, I go where stories are dying, where truth is being twisted, where memories are under siege. And I tell her name. Sella Ira. The girl in the cage, the one who brought a war. The one who won, not through force, through remembrance. I am not a soldier anymore. I am a librarian of the lost. And I will not let the universe forget. Not her people, not us. There was a time when remembering was enough. That time is over. They're not trying to erase memories anymore. Now they're trying to rewrite them. It started on Alliant Prime, a mid-core settlement known for its peace treaties and cultural archives. A beacon of diplomacy, untouched by war. Then one day, the people stopped speaking their own language. Not just forgetting rewriting, the language they spoke sounded similar. The names were close. The flags looked almost right, but none of it matched the records. They insisted nothing had changed. Even their history logs adjusted to the new reality. But I knew better, because Celera wasn't in their records anymore. I got there too late. I arrived to find the monument of the Remembered column where survivors of the Aventori War had engraved her name blank, polished clean. No trace of her voice. No hint of her mark. When I whispered her name aloud, people looked at me like I'd cursed. Some were afraid, some were angry. That's when I knew the Velthor weren't gone. They'd adapted. Now, they weren't just deleting memory, they were reprogramming truth. I met a girl there. Her name was Nirelle. She worked in the subterranean archives, one of the few places left untouched by the rewriting. Thanks to radiation shielding from a failed reactor, she'd found something strange, memory stones that vibrated when spoken. 2. Each time she said Celera's name, the stones pulsed in color, reacting like they remembered her even if no one else did. They're whispering back. She told me, voice trembling. They're alive, the memories, there. Fighting, we called them resonance, and they were the key to everything that followed. Nirelle and I traveled together after that. She wasn't a soldier, but she had fire in her heart. She carried a small notebook where she scribbled fragments of lost history in her own handwriting. She believed if you could write it down, the universe might remember again. We gathered resonance from old battlegrounds and abandoned cryovaults. We listened to forgotten songs, recorded dreams, translated dying languages into pure code. We started building something we called the Thread, not a weapon, not a fleet. A network of truth, invisible, scattered, hard-coded into reality's corners, a memory that even the Velthor couldn't rewrite, but they noticed and they sent the rewriting. We didn't know what they were at first. They looked like normal people, but they said the wrong things, spoke events that never happened, remembered wars that hadn't occurred, victories no one ever won. They infiltrated slowly political groups, academies, the Holonews networks, and when you confronted them, they smiled and corrected you. One day Nirelle turned to me and said, I think my father's one of them now. I didn't ask how she knew. She already looked like she'd buried him. We went dark after that. No more public broadcasts. No more direct engagement. We moved through hidden ports and collapsing stars. Places no longer patrolled, where the rewriting feared to follow. That's where we met Katar's Mar. Former general, war criminal in 7 systems, and the last person alive who claimed to have fought the first Velthor war. He was dying when we found him. Neural corrosion, caused by holding too much Forbidden's memory in his mind, but he gave us a name, Sereth Core. A node, I asked. He shook his head. A person. Or what used to be one. Sereth Core was once like Celera, designed to remember, meant to be a living archive, but unlike Celera, he broke. He joined the VELTAR. And helped them build the Wordforger. Facility where reality could be reshaped in narrative strands, where memory became software, where truth was just another update. If the Thread was our sanctuary, Sereth Core's Wordforge was their sword. We had no choice. We had to destroy it. The approach to the Wordforge was like descending into a myth. Nothing stable. Coordinates shifted mid-jump. Even our own nave system began contradicting itself. I remember the sky turned green for 3 hours, and Nirelle forgot her name for a day. We reached it by writing a pulse of sub-thought transmission, a pattern of Celera's hum encoded into my blood and amplified through the resonance. When we broke through the veil, I saw it, a tower made of memory, text, sound, image layered in fractals. Every lie ever told, every truth ever denied. Spiraling upward inside. Sereth Core, he didn't look ancient. He looked perfect. Smooth skin, symmetrical features, not a single sign of age. He smiled at us like we were insects crawling toward a flame. You came, he said. I always do, I replied. He tilted his head. But do you know why I raised my weapon? Because I remember. He shook his head. No, because she won't let you forget. He tried to tempt us, offered to rewrite the wars. To restore Nirelle's father. To erase the grief we carried like chains. She's not coming back, he said. You don't have to carry her anymore. But I felt her pulse in my chest, and I remembered her final words. You don't have to be strong. You just have to be true. I looked at Nirelle. She nodded. We activated the last resonant, a pulse of pure story. Celera's final memory. Her laughter, her fire, her pain. It hit the wordforge like a scream of light. The tower cracked. Serethkor shouted, but no sound came out because the story had reclaimed itself. We left it burning, and with it, the rewriting began to unravel. Not all, but some. The ones caught halfway between lies and truth. They awoke with terror in their eyes, crying names they hadn't spoken in decades. That was the start of the memory wars. Not fought with weapons, fought with voices. With songs, with stories, with people who refused to forget. It spread faster than the Velther could contain. The thread grew. Some called us myths. Some called us mad, but every day, someone remembered her. Sela Ira. The girl in the cage. The key, the memory they couldn't erase. One day, I will fall. I know that. No one carries memory forever, but Nirelle will keep it, and after her, someone else, because truth has a way of surviving, even when caged, even when rewritten, even when forgotten, and someday, someone will walk to a quiet place between stars, whisper her name, and awaken something ancient. Something beautiful and free. Sela Ira. You are not gone, you are becoming. Some memories aren't stored, they're buried, because if remembered, they destroy everything. It's been 12 years since Celera burned the first fracture into the Velther lattice, 9 since the thread began weaving through the stars, carrying truth in fragments, whispered by the ones who refused to forget, 5 since the last rewriting tried to convert me. And just 1 week since I began dreaming in their language, not of Entori. Navi el tar. Older. More dangerous, words that bend. Physics that don't want to be spoken, words like Shatterborn. The name came to me first in a fever. I woke drenched in sweat, the shard in my chest pulsing like it was afraid. Then the images began, a prison with no walls. A clock that ticks in reverse, a scream so loud it rewrote the species that heard it. Nirelle noticed the change before I did. She said I was walking like a stranger, writing in my sleep, whispering names that broke her ears. Something's wrong, she said. Even the resonants are trembling, and they were. The stones had turned black, not dead, just waiting. I checked the thread logs, quiet for months, until now. Hundreds of reports flooding in, monks on Zolrener waking up with blood-etched circles on their palms. A planetary AI on Coven 6 self-destructing after whispering the broken will return. A fleet near the Rift worlds frozen in space, their quantum drives entangled by unspoken math. It wasn't the VEL tar. It was something beneath them. Older. Exiled from remembrance. We traced the signals to a black hole beyond the galactic halo. Uncharted, unstable, and definitely not safe. Nirelle argued against it. You're not ready, she said. We don't know what we're waking. I think we already did, I replied, because I remembered Celera's last vision before she faded into the stars. A tower of bone, half buried in the folds of time. Surrounded by broken mirrors, she had whispered one word, not a name, a warning. They're waking. The black hole wasn't just gravity. It was thought. It pulled not just mass, but identity. Our ship's name flickered. Crew memories collapsed and rebuilt. I had to hold the shard in my palm just to remember who I was. When we emerged into the Event Veil, we found a planet, impossible, a stable body orbiting the singularity, lush, green, teeming with structure, but ancient, dead silent. No readings. No defenses, just a single structure, a spire of glass bones wrapped in glyphs that shimmered like living fire. Nirelle stared at it through the viewport. Do you feel that? She asked. I nodded. We were being remembered. We landed. The moment my boots hit the soil, I forgot my name, just for a second. Then the shard pulsed, and it came back, but it shook me. Nirelle leaned close. This place doesn't hide you, it unmakes you. The glyphs on the spire rearranged themselves as we approached. They told a story, not written in language, written in emotion. pain, betrayal, containment. Then a face, her face, Celera, but distorted. As if someone had tried to redraw her from memory. And failed. Is that? No, I said. It's not her. We entered the spire. It was hollow inside, but filled with floating orbs, each one flickering with a suspended memory, not from people. From worlds. We walked between echoes of a galaxy that never existed, a war that was never won, a peace that was never real, a god who never died. Then we saw him, floating at the center. Tall, scarred, eyes like cracked mirrors. The first Shatterborn. He opened his eyes, and the air around us warped into equations that cried in our bones. You've carried her well, he said. But she's only the beginning. I raised the shard. Who are you? His voice echoed through every cell in my body. I am the last of the forgotten. Celera was supposed to be the key. She was, he said, to them, to the Velther. But we came before memory, before time. Then what do you want? He floated downward until his feet touched nothing. We want to be remembered. Nirelle stepped forward. Why? He smiled, teeth to perfect, because remembrance is creation. If enough believe, we become. My pulse accelerated. You're trying to write yourselves into history. No, he said. Into reality. The walls of the spire began to shift, turning into translucent windows showing stars flickering out across dozens of systems. The thread was breaking. They were overriding our truth with theirs. You think you can replace her? I growled. He looked at me, pity in his gaze. We don't want to replace her. We want to use her. She was the first successful vessel for memory. She proved it could be done. I clutched the shard tighter. You'll never touch her again. Too late, he said. And then he smiled in her voice. My knees hit the ground. Inside my mind, I saw her again, but twisted. Celera standing in a palace of bone. Her silver hair scorched black, eyes empty, lips chanting names that should not exist. I screamed. The shard burned my skin. My body convulsed. She's not gone, he whispered. Just rewriting. Nirelle pulled me back with everything she had, slamming a resonant stone into my chest. The spire shattered. And the Shatterborn screamed, not in pain. In laughter. Run, he said, his voice splintering. You'll come back. We escaped, just barely, and now we know the truth. Celera's story was never the end. She was the spark. The invitation. The Velther tried to cage her, but the Shatterborn, they want to be her. They want to become the next myth, the next memory. The next truth. And so now, we begin again, this time not just to remember, but to defend remembrance itself. The memory wars are over. Now begin the story wars. And this time they write back. The Shatterborn were only the beginning. For every legend there's a dark side and antithesis that waits for the moment to rise. They had always existed, hidden beneath the veneer of our universe's histories. Now they were awake, and the very fabric of existence was being twisted by their hunger for something deeper than memory. They wanted reality. We thought we had time. We thought we were clever. We were wrong. The stars are alive. They remembered when the Shatterborn invaded our minds. They didn't just rewrite history. They tore open the edges of the universe, pulling threads from every reality they could reach. They whispered truths that had been forgotten for millennia, truths that had nothing to do with the Velther, with Celera, or even the core civilizations of the galaxy. These were the truths of the first creation, and with those truths came a power no one had ever seen. The first world they targeted was Alterus III, a planet known for its artistic philosophy and ancient monuments. I had visited it once, long before the Shatterborn made their move. It was one of the few peaceful worlds that held no military alliances. I remember the floating gardens and the libraries that stretched into the clouds, but that was before they arrived. They called it the Great Shattering, a series of cataclysmic events where all sentient life suddenly ceased to function in unison. The Shatterborn used reality-altering frequencies that tore through the neural matrix of entire populations. At first, it was just silence. Then people began to speak in fragments, not of their own lives, but of something else, ancient languages that had died out. Names that shouldn't have been remembered. The histories of dead galaxies and forgotten gods, the very foundations of their minds had been cracked open. Alterus 3 wasn't lost because of war. It was lost because of a memory theft so deep, so complete, that nothing remained of the world. They once knew Nirelle, and I watched the transmission in silence. I clenched my fists as the static crackled and the images of Alterus 3's skies became distorted, glitching between the fading realities. It's spreading, Nirelle whispered. We need to find a way to stop it. How do you stop something that feeds on rewriting existence itself? She asked, voice shaking. They're not just altering memories. They're turning people into blank slates. Then we do what we've always done, I said. We fight to make sure the truth isn't erased. She nodded, though I could see the weight of the universe in her eyes. We called upon the thread, the connection to the resonance, the scattered, struggling network of truth carriers was weaker now. Those who had joined us had begun fading, losing themselves in the Shatterborn's ever-expanding reach. But I knew there were still fragments of our old allies, remnants of the forgotten gods, those who remembered what once was. We needed to act fast. We couldn't afford to lose any more ground. In secret, we met with the Chronomancers, an elusive faction who had once been thought of as myth. They existed in the folds of time, living between moments like ghosts. They were the last line of defense against the Shatterborn's ability to twist reality to their will. We're running out of time, said Derek Kell, the leader of the Chronomancers. His gray eyes were filled with sorrow. Every time they tear through the fabric of memory, it weakens our grasp on time itself. Soon, there will be nothing left to hold. What do you need? I asked, already knowing the answer. A key, he said. A weapon capable of severing the Shatterborn from reality itself. A weapon? Nirelle repeated, incredulous. What, like a bomb? We've already seen what happens when reality bends. No, Derek replied, something more profound. He turned and gestured to a wall lined with relics. Among them was a strange, glowing sphere. It pulsated with an inner rhythm, as if it were alive. What is that? I asked. This, Derek said, is the Chrono Prism. It holds the essence of unbroken time. The Shatterborn can only manipulate memory because they're disconnected from time. They exist in fractured moments, but if we can force them into the present, into real time, we can trap them. And how do we use it? We can't, he said. Not yet. The Chrono Prism was meant for another purpose. A defense against something older than even the Shatterborn. We didn't have long. The Chronomancers worked furiously, trying to calibrate the Chrono Prism, but we knew it would take time we didn't have. That's when we got the message, a single, simple transmission. The final archive is open. It came from the heart of the void, a place no one had ventured in centuries. A library lost to time, rumored to be the source of all known knowledge, the Great Archive. The heart was older than the Shatterborn, older than even the Velther. If anyone could hold the key to defeating the Shatterborn, it would be there. We didn't hesitate. Nirelle and I joined the last remaining Chronomancer fleet, a group of time-bending vessels that could fold through the cracks of space. Our destination was set, the heart of the void. As we traveled, the fabric of time around us began to warp. We passed through nebulae that were no longer there, crossed paths with stars that hadn't existed yet. The Chronomancers guided us through a rift slipping between the folds of spacetime until we arrived at our destination. The heart of the void was an impossible structure. It existed in no physical space, yet it was everywhere. A library that spanned the dimensions, held together by thought alone. It was alive. We entered cautiously, surrounded by the archivists, ancient beings who had tended the Great Archive for eons. Their forms shifted like liquid metal, their eyes shining with the knowledge of the universe. One of them approached us, its voice soft but firm. You are the memory bearers, it said. You seek to rewrite what was unmade. But know this, the Shatterborn are not just a threat to your world, they are a threat to all worlds. If you do not act soon, they will unmake the past itself. Then help us, Nirelle said. Help us stop them. The archivist paused. The key to stopping the Shatterborn is not found in the past. It is found in the future. They are not just rewriting memories, they are rewriting the futures they were never meant to see. The archivist led us to the heart of the library, where the Chrono Prism pulsed with raw power. They placed their hands on it, and the walls of the archive began to shift. Images flashed before us, timelines folding and unraveling. Worlds that had been, worlds that never were. I saw flashes of Celer, her face filled with both anguish and determination, leading a rebellion of forgotten gods. I felt it then, the weight of all that had come before, and the certainty that if the Shatterborn weren't stopped, the universe would not only forget, it would never have been. We must go, the archivist said as the structure around us began to collapse. There is no time left, and we did. The fleet moved quickly, taking us back to the battlefield. The Chrono Prism, now activated, crackled with power. We were ready. We were not just fighting for the present anymore. We were fighting for every moment that had ever been and ever would be. The Shatterborn had underestimated us. They thought we were the final generation. They thought we were the last ones to remember, but they had never accounted for the ones who keep remembering. The time was now.